Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few truly know what you are. Niccolo Machiavelli. Look at the world around you. It is loud, it is restless. It is drowning in noise, and most men are drowning right along with it. They talk to be seen, they move to be noticed. They mistake circular thinking for intelligence, and mistake reaction for strength. But real strength was never born in noise. It was forged in the silence that weaker men are too afraid to enter. You were not built to perform for an audience. You were built to move through this world with a mind sharper than every tongue around you. And yet, somewhere along the way, you forgot that. You started explaining yourself to people who never earned the right to a single sentence. You started reacting to every insult, every doubt, every flicker of someone else's attention. You traded your power for applause. And applause is the cheapest currency this world has ever printed. So listen carefully, because this is the moment everything changes. True strength does not announce itself. It does not beg to be understood, and it does not bleed where others can watch. True strength begins the day you stop spending your thoughts on the unworthy, stop spending your words on the unimpressed, and stop spending your focus on the irrelevant. Machiavelli understood something that most men still refuse to learn. The loud are easy to read, the emotional are easy to break, and the distracted are easy to destroy. The man who thinks more and speaks less becomes something rare in this world, a ghost with teeth, unreadable, unpredictable, unstoppable. If you are tired of being underestimated, tired of being used, tired of being the man who gives too much and receives too little, good. That fatigue is not weakness. It is the first spark of something else entirely. Sit with it. Let it sharpen you. Because from this moment on, you are no longer here to be liked. You are here to become dangerous in the most disciplined, silent, and deliberate way a man can be dangerous. Ask yourself honestly, how much of your power have you already given away today, just to be understood by someone who is never going to understand you? Law 1. Silence as currency. Every word you speak is a coin drawn from your treasury. Spend it carelessly, and one day you will wake up bankrupt, wondering why men with half your mind seem to hold twice your influence. The talker is the easiest man alive to defeat because he hands his opponent the blueprint of his own soul before the contest has even begun. He announces his dreams, exposes his fears, reveals his plans and his wounds, and then wonders why life keeps ambushing him at every turn. Historians of the Renaissance note that Machiavelli's own diplomatic career was built on exactly this insight. As a Florentine envoy, he spent years studying rulers who revealed too much and paid for it in lost thrones. The man who reveals himself surrenders himself. And yet, look at how freely men confess today. They pour their ambitions into ears that quietly envy them. They hand their strategies to rivals who smile while they listen. They explain, defend, justify, and repeat, and call it honesty. It is not honesty. It is leakage. It is the slow bleeding of a man who has never learned that silence is armor. From this day forward, treat your words like weapons kept in a holster. Draw them only when necessary, and never simply to impress. The strong do not explain themselves. The strong do not announce their next move. The strong do not warn an opponent before they act. They observe, they decide, they move. When you speak less, two things happen, and both work in your favor. First, people begin to lean in, because mystery has its own gravity. It pulls attention toward it without asking for any. Second, you begin to hear what the noise was always drowning out. The hesitation hiding behind a rival's confident voice. The small lie folded into a friend's smile. The fear tucked beneath a superior's command. The world only reveals its true face to those who have made themselves quiet enough to notice. So kill the talker inside you. Bury him without ceremony.
Let a new man rise in his place, one who listens like a strategist, speaks like someone with nothing left to prove, and leaves a room having learned more about the people in it than they ever learned about him. Law 2. The inner courtroom. Now turn the blade inward, because the loudest voice in your life was never the world outside you. It was always the storm inside your own skull. Most men are not destroyed by their enemies. They are destroyed by the endless courtroom running in their own head, where every decision is cross-examined until the moment to act has already died of old age. They call this thinking. It is not thinking. It is fear wearing the mask of intelligence. Modern research on the brain's so-called default mode network, the circuitry that lights up when we are not focused on any task, backs this up more than most men realize. Left unchecked, that network spends most of its time replaying old regrets and rehearsing imaginary conflicts that will never happen. The untrained mind is not resting. It is quietly exhausting itself. The silent mind is not an empty mind. It is a sharpened one. It has stopped chasing every passing thought the way a dog chases every passing car. It has accepted a simple, uncomfortable truth. The majority of what crosses your mind in a given day is noise, regret, fantasy, or fear, and none of it deserves a seat on your throne. You must become the gatekeeper of your own head. When a thought arrives, ask it one question. Does this serve my purpose, or does it drain it? If it drains you, dismiss it without apology. Weak men entertain every doubt like an honored guest. Strong men show doubt the door before it has time to sit down. Understand this clearly. Overthinking is the disease of men who no longer trust themselves, and the cure is not more thinking. The cure is movement, decision, and silence. Sit alone without your phone. Walk without music in your ears. Eat a meal without a screen in front of you. Let your mind relearn something it has forgotten. How to be still without panicking. In that stillness, your original instincts return, the ones buried for years beneath other people's noise and other people's opinions. You begin to hear yourself again. And once a man can hear himself clearly, no crowd can drown him out, no insult can shake his footing, and no manipulator can plant a single seed inside a mind that is already fully occupied. Law 3. The art of amputation. Focus is the rarest weapon left on this earth. Look around you. Every screen, every notification, every borrowed opinion is engineered, quite literally, by design teams paid to do exactly this: to steal your attention from you. And most men simply hand it over for free, then wonder why their lives feel like sand slipping between their fingers. Understand this without flinching. Attention is the new currency of power. Where it flows, you grow. Where it leaks, you slowly disappear. Machiavelli built his entire theory of political influence with nothing more than a pen, a patron's ear, and a mind that refused to wander from its subject. Imagine what a mind like that would do with the tools most men waste before breakfast. Here is the uncomfortable truth. You are not behind in life because you lack talent. You are behind because your focus is scattered across 100 small battlefields, none of which you actually intend to win. Focus is not motivation. Focus is amputation. It is the deliberate decision to cut away everything that does not serve the man you are trying to become. Cut the friendships that quietly drain you. Cut the habits that soften your edge. Cut the entertainment that hypnotizes you into losing another year of your life without noticing. The focused man is unsettling to be around precisely because he has made peace with missing out. While others chase 10 things and catch none of them, he chases one thing and takes it completely. Choose your obsession, then guard it the way a king guards his throne. Wake with it, rest with it. Let it become the quiet undercurrent beneath every hour of your day. And when distraction comes knocking, and it will come dressed as friends, as opportunities, as harmless pleasures, remember that every yes you give to the irrelevant is a no you are handing to the man you swore you would become. Focus is loyalty to your future self. Break that loyalty, and you break yourself along with it. Keep it, and within a single year, you will barely recognize the quiet momentum building beneath your feet. Law 4. The Sovereign Face. Now learn the law that separates the ruler from the ruled, the law of the mask. Every man wears one, whether he admits it or not. The weak wear theirs badly, leaking emotion through every crack in the surface. The strong wear theirs so seamlessly that observers forget there was ever a face underneath. Machiavelli argued that the world does not reward what a man truly is. It rewards only what he permits others to see. And what you allow the world to see should always be a decision, never an accident. This is not dishonesty. This is sovereignty over your own image. The man who displays every emotion has handed the remote control of his life to total strangers. Insult him, and he flinches on command. Praise him, and he glows on command. Threaten him, and he trembles on command. He is a puppet, and every observer in the room can see exactly which string to pull next. You will not be that man. From this day forward, your expression becomes a fortress. When someone insults you, you respond with a slow, almost amused smile, as though watching a child attempt something far beyond them. When someone praises you, you offer a single nod, as though you already knew. When someone tries to provoke a reaction, you simply go quiet, and your silence will occupy their thoughts far longer than any answer ever could. Let them wonder what is happening behind your expression. Let them invent their own stories about you when you are not in the room. Mystery is the gravity that pulls influence toward the still and the composed. Inside, you may be burning. Inside, you may be calculating, planning, even furious. But outside, you are winter, calm, cold, and unreadable. This is not coldness for its own sake. This is composure as a survival strategy. Because the instant the world learns exactly how to move you, the world effectively owns you. And you were never meant to be owned. You were meant to walk into every room as the one variable no one in it can predict. Law 5. The value of scarcity. Here is a truth that desperate men will never grasp. Your value is measured as much by your absence as by your presence. The men who are constantly available are typically worth very little in other people's eyes. The men who are rare are worth almost everything. Machiavelli understood this dynamic centuries before modern platforms trained an entire generation to beg for attention around the clock. He recognized that constant proximity breeds contempt, that familiarity dulls respect, and that the ruler who is always reachable is the ruler who is always replaceable. Behavioral economists today describe something similar with the concept of scarcity bias. Human beings instinctively assign more value to what is limited and less value to what is constantly on offer. Machiavelli reached the same conclusion without a single laboratory study. He simply watched courts and kingdoms rise and fall. So learn the law of distance and learn it thoroughly, because it will quietly rebuild your worth without a single word of persuasion. When you are always reachable, you eventually become furniture in other people's lives, useful, familiar, and taken for granted. When you withdraw even slightly, something ancient stirs in the people around you. They begin to wonder. They begin to notice your absence. They begin to remember your name with weight instead of habit. This is not manipulation. It is simply the natural physics of human attention. What is rare gets studied. What is constant gets forgotten. Stop answering the instant you're summoned. Stop appearing uninvited in rooms that never asked for your energy. Pull back, not out of pride, but out of strategy.
Let your absence say what your words never quite managed to. Watch how quickly the people who once overlooked you begin to feel the weight of your silence. Watch how a friend who took you for granted suddenly remembers exactly what you brought to the relationship. Distance is not rejection. Distance is revelation. It exposes who genuinely valued you and who was simply using your availability. What would change in your relationships if you stopped being the most available person in every room you entered? Build boundaries, not because you despise the world, but because you have finally understood that not everyone deserves a key to it. Disappear into your work, disappear into your discipline, disappear into the quiet construction of the man you intend to become. Let the noise wonder where you went. Let the crowd invent its own theories. When you return, and return only on your own terms, you will come back as something they no longer fully recognize. Heavier, sharper, far harder to move. Law 6. The Judge Within. Now we step into the chamber most men are too afraid to enter. The chamber where emotion is dethroned and clear thought takes the crown. Understand this without flinching. Emotion is not your enemy, but emotion left in charge of your decisions is one of the fastest routes to ruin a man can take. Nearly every disaster in your life can be traced back to a single moment when feeling occupied the seat that reasoning should have held. You spoke when silence would have served you better. You trusted when every signal was screaming retreat. You reacted when patience would have quietly handed you everything you wanted. Machiavelli did not rise through feeling deeply. He rose through seeing clearly. And clarity is nearly impossible when your pride is bleeding or your temper is boiling over. The cold mind is not a heartless mind. It is a disciplined one. It feels everything, but it obeys nothing until that feeling has first been questioned. When anger arrives, the cold mind asks, "What does this anger want me to do? And who benefits if I actually do it?" When fear arrives, it asks, "Is this fear protecting me, or is it simply paralyzing me?" When desire arrives, it asks, "Is this hunger genuinely mine, or was it planted by someone who profits from my chasing it?" This is the inner courtroom of the disciplined man. Nothing is admitted without cross-examination. Nothing rules without permission. Weak men are governed by whichever emotion happens to shout the loudest in a given moment, which is precisely why their lives so often look like chaos wearing the costume of personality. You will not live that way any longer. From today, you become the judge presiding over your own storms. When someone insults you, you do not flinch. You study them, because an insult is very often a confession of their own unhealed wound. When someone betrays you, you do not collapse. You take notes, because betrayal is one of the cheapest and most reliable educations in human nature available to any man. When life strikes you,
You do not beg the sky for mercy. You breathe, you adjust, and you keep moving.
The cold mind does not mean you stop loving, stop caring, or stop feeling. It means you stop being governed by every feeling that passes through you. Your emotions become advisors in your court, not rulers over it. This single shift changes almost everything, because the moment you can sit calmly at the center of a storm that would shatter other men, you become something the world rarely produces and never forgets. A man who cannot be provoked, cannot be rushed, and cannot be moved by flattery or by fear. People sense this before they can fully explain it. They lower their voices around a man like that. They choose their words with unusual care, because on some level they understand they are standing in front of someone who has already won a war they themselves are still losing internally. Law 7. The long wait. Now learn the virtue the modern world has been quietly trying to kill in you. Patience. Not the soft, resigned patience of a defeated man who calls his waiting acceptance simply because he has no power left to change anything. This is a darker, sharper patience. The patience of the predator who sees the trap, sees the timing, sees the exact moment to move, and waits. Because he knows the strike only needs to land once if it lands correctly. Machiavelli understood that timing is the true secret weapon of every ruler who has ever lasted more than a season. The impatient man burns his ammunition at every shadow that moves. The patient man holds his position until the target has no possible escape. Naturalists who study lions have found that even these apex predators succeed in less than a third of their hunts. But the ones that do succeed are almost always the result of long, motionless observation, followed by a single, decisive burst of movement. Never a chase begun in haste. That is the rhythm of real power. Long stillness, sudden action, and a quiet return to silence. Most men cannot bear this rhythm. They itch, they twitch. They feel a compulsive need to act, to speak, to prove, to react. Because to them, stillness feels indistinguishable from weakness. But stillness is not weakness. Stillness is a loaded weapon in the hands of a disciplined man. The man who can wait without rushing is, almost without exception, the man who eventually wins without needing to rush. So train yourself in the long game. When someone wrongs you, resist the urge to rush toward revenge. Let time do a good portion of the work for you, because time exposes nearly every man eventually, and the world has a strange habit of quietly punishing arrogance without any help from you at all. When you want something badly, do not chase it with desperate eyes. Desperation carries a scent that every predator and every prey animal can detect from a distance, and it quietly ruins deals, relationships, and opportunities everywhere it touches. Instead, prepare in silence. Position yourself carefully. Build your foundation with such patience that when the moment finally arrives, you no longer have to chase anything at all. It simply walks into your hands as though it always belonged there. If you were honest with yourself, how many opportunities in your own life were lost not because you moved too slowly, but because you moved too soon? Understand this. Most opportunities are lost not because men were too slow, but because they were too eager. They spoke before the room was ready to hear them. They confessed before trust had been properly built. They struck before their opponent had been fully isolated. And they paid for it, almost without exception, every single time. You will not pay that price again. From this day forward, you watch. You wait. You let others reveal their hand first, exhaust themselves first, gamble everything, while yours stays hidden. And when the moment finally arrives, and the patient always recognize it when it does, you move once. You move precisely.
and you move without any warning at all. This is how empires were built quietly, while louder men were still making noise about theirs. Patience is not the absence of action. Patience is action, sharpened down to its most lethal point. And the man who finally masters it stops fearing the future, because time has stopped being his enemy and quietly become his most loyal weapon instead. Law 8. The unshakable core. Now we arrive at the transformation itself, the point where every law you have absorbed stops being a rule you consciously follow and becomes an instinct you simply breathe. This is where the untouchable man is born, not in one dramatic moment, but in the quiet accumulation of 1,000 disciplined choices that no one around you ever applauded. Understand what untouchable actually means, because the word has been cheapened by men who only pretend to embody it. Untouchable does not mean invincible. It does not mean nothing can hurt you. It means nothing can move you from the center of yourself. Insults arrive and slide off without finding a foothold. Betrayals arrive and teach you something instead of breaking you. Loss arrives and refines you instead of ruining you. The untouchable man has built something inside himself that the world cannot reach, simply because the world had no hand in building it and has no idea where the entrance even is. Machiavelli wrote extensively about princes and their courts, but the deepest prince of all is the one who governs the small kingdom between his own ears. That is the one throne no rival can storm, no crowd can pressure, and no single failure can permanently seize. And once a man settles into that seat, every other part of his life tends to arrange itself around him, almost as though reality had been waiting for him to finally claim it. Look at what these laws have already begun building in you. You think more clearly, so your mind is no longer a battlefield of noise, but a blade kept sharp through stillness. You speak less, so the words you do choose to say carry actual weight, and people lean in as though something worth hearing is about to be delivered. You focus more, so the scattered version of yourself has quietly been retired, replaced by a man with one clear obsession and the patience to see it fully through. You wear the mask when it serves you, so no one can read exactly when you are struggling and exactly when you are winning. And that uncertainty alone unsettles weaker men far more than any argument could. You guard your distance, so your presence carries weight in every room you choose to enter. You govern your emotions, so no insult can drag you into a fight that was never worth the cost of fighting it. You wait like a predator, so that when you finally move, the outcome is rarely in question. This is not a fantasy or a character to perform. This is the architecture of a man the world cannot easily unsettle. And here is something few people will tell you plainly. Once a man becomes this, the world tends to stop testing him the way it once did. Not because the world has grown kinder, but because the world, at its core, is fundamentally opportunistic. It tests the soft. It pressures the desperate. It feeds on the reactive. But it hesitates, almost instinctively, around the still and the composed. People with predatory instincts of their own recognize composure when they see it, and they generally choose easier targets. Manipulators sense a mind that questions everything before it reacts, and they move on to someone less vigilant. Users sense guarded boundaries, and they look elsewhere for an easier host. You will feel this shift before you can fully explain it. The conversations around you will change. People will choose their words more carefully in your presence. Opportunities will begin arriving without you having to chase them. Because in a strange way, doors tend to open more easily for men who have stopped begging the world for anything. And somewhere in that quiet, you will notice something almost unbelievable. The life you were once desperate to force into existence
has begun assembling itself in your favor, simply because you stopped leaking your energy into the wrong places. This is the actual reward of long discipline. Not fame, not noise, not the shallow validation that weaker men chase for an entire lifetime without ever catching it. The reward is sovereignty. The experience of walking through the world as a man who cannot easily be rushed, easily read, or easily ruled. The reward is looking into a mirror and finally meeting the eyes of someone you no longer have to lie to. The reward is a silence so full of quiet authority that it carries further than any raised voice in the room ever could. Law 9. The Final Reckoning. So here we are, at the edge of everything. The lessons have been spoken, the principles have been laid out plainly. The mask has been fitted, the silence has been sharpened, the patience has been forged, and the cold mind has been given its seat at the table. What remains now is not more teaching. What remains is a choice. Because every word you have absorbed tonight is worthless the instant it dies inside you the moment this video ends. Knowledge that never becomes discipline is simply entertainment for people who want to feel powerful without ever paying the actual cost of becoming powerful. And you did not sit through this to be entertained. You came because something inside you is tired. Tired of being underestimated. Tired of being overlooked. Tired of being the man who gives too much, says too much, explains too much, and receives far too little in return. What is the one habit you already know is quietly costing you the man you are capable of becoming? And what would it cost you to finally cut it loose? That fatigue is worth something. Do not waste it. Let it become the fire that burns away the older version of you, so the untouchable man can finally rise from what remains. Hear this clearly, because it is the closing command behind everything discussed tonight. From this point forward, you will think less and observe more. You will speak less and mean more of what you say. You will focus more and chase less. You will withdraw from the noise and return only when your presence carries real weight. You will guard your expression like a fortress, and your words like weapons kept sheathed until needed. You will govern your emotions before they govern your life. You will wait like a predator, and when the moment comes, strike like a verdict that was never in doubt. You will stop explaining yourself to people who were never going to understand you. You will stop proving yourself to people who are never going to acknowledge it. You will stop exhausting yourself for a world that respects, almost exclusively, those who refuse to bleed in public. You will become quiet. The kind of quiet that makes a room slightly more careful. You will become still. The kind of still that makes even chaos hesitate before approaching you. You will become rare. The kind of rare that turns your absence into someone else's regret. And one day, sooner than you currently expect, you will look around and notice that the same world that once stepped over you is now quietly stepping aside for you. Not because you demanded it, but because you finally became the kind of man the world instinctively makes space for. That day is coming. But it will not arrive for the man who only listened tonight. It will arrive for the man who actually obeys what he heard. So obey the discipline, obey the silence, obey the long game, and let every person who ever underestimated you discover, far too late, that the quietest man in the room was the one quietly building something real, while everyone else was still talking about theirs. Before you go, consider this. If even one idea in this video cut through the noise tonight and reached the part of you that has been waiting to wake up, then let this channel be the place you come back to as that man continues to take shape.
What we are building here is not just content. It is a quiet space for men who are done being loud without purpose and done being used by their own impatience. Subscribe, stay close to what comes next, and let the next lesson meet you on the exact day you actually need it. You arrived here tonight as a listener. Whether you leave as a student is entirely your decision. And if you choose to obey what you learned here, the next time you return to this channel, you will return as someone measurably different, heavier in substance, sharper in judgment, calmer under pressure, and considerably lighter in ego. The untouchable man is not a fantasy. He is a decision. And that decision begins the second this video ends and you step back into a world that has no idea what you are quietly about to become. Go now. Think less. Talk less. Focus more. And let your silence do what 1,000 loud men could never manage to do for themselves.